We'll do it. We'll do it. We'll do it live. Hey, it's Chuck. Welcome, guys. On today's show, we got a massive hire, recruiting news, a dangerous field, another brilliant move by the NCAA, and the Big 12 cries. All that and more. Let's get it. He answered that was not. He's full of shit. I'm not ready to say it's going to happen this season. It's going to happen this season. Do whatever stupid deals you want to do, like the most ridiculous buyouts in the world. Hey, you want to be careful. We get a total pass. We get a pass. Give us our jerseys back. It's our birthright. And welcome in. So, big news today as the Buckeyes have hired Brandon Jordan, a defensive program assistant. Now, grad assistant Alan Clark tweeted last night that he had dreamed of being in the same room and learning from the best when talking about Brandon Jordan. Now, when someone tweets something like that about a guy who, number one, I've never heard of, and number two, has been brought in not even as accountable coach, it gets my ears perked up. So I had to do a little bit of research. Brandon Jordan recently worked as a pass rush specialist for the Seahawks last year, and in 2022, he had the same role with Sparty. Okay. He's worked with guys like Cam Hayward, Chandler Jones, Von Miller, Jadeveon Clowney, TJ Watt. Okay, that's all great. But, you know, those are also freaks, right? How much is this guy helping them? I don't know. We have a lot of guys who have coached at Ohio State who can also put on their resume that they have coached some amazing players at Ohio State when maybe they weren't the best coach. You know what I'm saying? You get where I'm going. So let's talk a bit about Brandon Jordan. I did a little deep dive. I wanted to go a little further and see what this guy's story was and why this GA is so incredibly excited for him. All right, so he loses his job in 2015 when his entire staff was let go at a small school he was coaching at. Sends out 1,000 emails trying to get a job in football of any kind. Couldn't get any. He went to a coaching convention, but because he's so shy, he couldn't even get anybody to look at him or talk to him. So he kind of gives up, moves home to New Orleans, and starts doing maintenance at a housing project, picking up trash around the complex. But during that time, he also volunteered at a football training facility called Velocity. Now, this was packed with high school kids who had no access to really good quality coaching. So he's donating his time, training these high school kids. And before we know it, a bunch of these kids out of these small schools in Louisiana are getting D1 scholarships. And Brandon Jordan thinks maybe he's found his calling. Maybe he's going to be a personal coach. So he says, all right, I'm moving to Houston. I'm going to build up my own personal clientele. So he goes to Houston. And in short order, he does find an NFL client, a little-known guy, but he starts working with him. And while he's working with him, he's building an Instagram channel. In this Instagram channel, he's putting out videos of what they're doing. And it wasn't long before star defensive tackle Gerald McCoy got a hold of one of those Instagram videos and decided to reach out and get in touch with him. And before you know it, Brandon Jordan's working for Gerald McCoy. So that then leads to Rashawn Gary, Ed Oliver, Cleveland Farrell, Max Crosby. 3 of those guys became top 4 picks in the NFL draft. Crosby signed a $94 million contract. And Brandon Jordan became a household name amongst the pass rushing community, which is a community apparently. So through this notoriety, Brandon Jordan gets an internship for the Arizona Cardinals. So he goes and works for the Cardinals, and he's so beloved that the defensive coordinator was so impressed with him, he had him working with the safeties for pass rush moves, including one of my all-time favorite players, Budda Baker. Love Budda. So from there, Jordan goes ahead and goes with Mel Tucker up to Michigan State, and then last year with the Seahawks, as we talked about. But this man in these circles, and I'm talking about the pass rush circles, these dudes that all know each other, the coaches and the big-time players, refer to Brandon Jordan as the Aaron Donald of pass rush training. Now, that's one heck of an accomplishment, obviously. According to them, those in the community, he has a high coaching IQ. His ability to break down pass sets is unparalleled. And he also is very big on teaching these guys what they need to be looking from the offensive linemen. And apparently it's quite unique the way he goes about it. Okay, so the guy sounds awesome. Why would a guy with these credentials and this kind of reputation come to Ohio State as a program assistant with limited coaching ability, as a non-countable coach, and limited opportunity to be on the field? Well, if we're reading the tea leaves and kind of, being a little objective, we're going to go ahead and say that Ryan Day has found himself the Larry Johnson succession plan. We got to say we think that's what's going on here, don't we, guys? Let me know what you think. Sure sounds like it to me. But to have Brandon Jordan now working with Larry and meeting these recruits right from Jump Street, it could potentially squash a whole lot of the negative recruiting, and Larry could work out his full 2 years left on that contract and kind of just roll right in to Brandon Jordan. It would be an ideal scenario, and I didn't think Ryan Day would be able to pull off getting someone of this caliber to come in and do this, but it appears he has. And it appears like yet another masterful offseason move by Ryan Day, who has just shown time and time again this offseason that he is becoming next level. The guy is he's achieved the next level in coaching through his experience, through his hard work, and through his dedication. And this is a guy that we did not talk about in these terms a couple years ago. And I'm telling you, I'm so excited for this team. I'm so excited for Ryan Day. In a way, I feel proud. Don't you feel like we've kind of watched this guy grow up in front of us as a coach? I mean, he's at the pinnacle, and he's going to be a champion, and I can't wait. He's now been able to retain Laurinaitis, kept him from leaving, got him that job that he needed, and he's figured out how to do the succession plan by bringing in a very highly qualified guy and basically saying you got to ride the pine somewhat for 2 years until Larry goes. And most people would say no. But the allure of working with Ryan Day and the allure of working at Ohio State got Brandon Jordan to say, all right, coach, I'm in. Now, a little bit of speculation on my part, but that's what I think's going on. I'd love to hear what you think's going on. All right, let's get to some quick recruiting news for the day. Top 100 defensive tackle Trenton Williams, 6'3", 270 out of Maryland, has set a spring visit with the Buckeyes. The Bucs offered Wilson last March, and he claims Ohio State is very high on his list. Now, Wilson is a very interesting prospect, not only because he's a big beast of a man, but I'm going to post a picture here. This dude looks like he's 32. This is a high school kid. And that is one leans 270. I mean, this is a big, bad-looking dude. Additionally, as I have said recently, and I'm sorry, Penn State, but Maryland is now Buckeye country. You no longer own Maryland. Every big Maryland prospect is officially scarlet and gray. Sorry about your luck. You lose. One of Ohio State's top offensive tackle target, five-star Micah DeBose, who we've been talking about forever, grew up, lived in Ohio till he was about 8 years old. Then he moved down to Alabama. Well, he was committed to Georgia. He decommitted. And since then, it certainly appears like it's an Alabama and Ohio State commitment here. Now, they speak glowingly, his family, about Ohio State. But they also speak very nice of Alabama. And we'll see where that goes. He is going to be making a return trip to Columbus soon. This is a massive opportunity for Justin Fry and the Bucs. This dude's 6'5", 315, absolute stud. But I did see last night that he did have a crystal ball to LSU. But the person that crystal balled, I had never read the name or even heard the name. So if it's not from Steve Wiltfong, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to those. But LSU definitely has picked up some momentum when it comes to him. All right. James Laurinaitis has offered linebacker Jaden Harmon out of Rome, Georgia. Interesting to note. He's from Rome, Georgia. Harmon's a top 50 overall prospect, 6'1", 215. He's likely going to play will linebacker in college. And when asked what he loves about Ohio State, he said the tradition, and it's the number one brand in college football. Man, that's got to hurt if you're from Georgia and one of your top players in your state is saying that, and I love it. He's also very impressed by Laurinaitis. And I think that's really impressive that kids this age are in tune to older players. Like, I don't know, man. You got to think this dude was like 11 years old when Laurinaitis was playing, and to be that, impressed and know who he is. I mean, I'm sure they remind him who he is, but that's pretty awesome. So I'm really liking this kid. I did watch his film. He's a big old thumper. I don't like him as much as I like Elijah Melendez. But I think I'm way higher than Elijah Melendez than most people are. And I want to play Elijah Melendez highlights for you to see if you think what I think. So I'm going to play those as I'm talking here. London Merritt, a top 100 overall edge rusher who's 6'3", out of IMG. I hate IMG, guys. Different segment for a different day. But London Merritt has narrowed down his list of schools, and Ohio State has made that initial cut. According to Merritt's father, Ohio State is going above and beyond. They've been there since the beginning, and the family did love Alabama under Nick Saban, and they look forward to meeting the new regime at Alabama. While the new regime at Alabama still does include defensive line coach Freddie Roach, who's not only incredibly endearing and a great recruiter, but he's a heck of a coach, he's now working for Kalen DeBoer, not Nick Saban. And I'm not incredibly worried about them anymore with Kalen DeBoer. So I like our odds. With them. But this guy's a big test. We really need an edge guy like that. We need a big-time edge guy. We haven't had, that kind of body frame in an edge guy in a little while that's come in that highly touted. We've been getting more, Edric Houston's massive. He's a big dude. But these slightly lighter weight guys that are a little faster and longer, we are desperately needing one of those dudes. So looking forward to seeing how that recruitment goes. Superstar number one safety in the country, Fahim Delane, seems to be down to Oregon and Ohio State. And I think we're going to be hearing that out of a lot of recruits coming up for the next 4 or 5 years. Oregon and Ohio State. The Bucks are favored. Delane also took a visit to Texas, and he is planning on taking a visit to Colorado. And I've been clear that I think Deion is a lazy recruiter. But when we're talking about recruiting a kid who plays in the secondary, I can't just scoff at the idea of Colorado. I mean, I get that Deion would be incredibly hard to not have some allure to a secondary player. Fahim is so incredibly good. I think, when you watch his tape, they need to make a secondary category when evaluating safeties. We talk about receivers having a catch radius. Well, there is a new column, and we can call it the Fahim Delane column, but it's basically the tackle radius, because this dude swallows guys up that he has no business getting to. I mean, he's just an absolute freak. And that's why he's the number one safety in the country and why we need him so bad. But the Devin Sanchez family will be in Columbus in March, and it seems like the Bucks will try to get a lot of these uncommitted guys in there too, to kind of let the Sanchez family go to work and do what they do, which is recruit. They are the Ohio State Buckeye Recruiters Southwest Division, and they're doing awesome at it. Linebacker TJ Alford, also probably in town that weekend. So another great time to have the Sanchez family there. Miami is another big player for Alford. And, of course, Laurinaitis is trying to flip my favorite linebacker, Elijah Melendez, from Miami. So the stage is set for James to absolutely de-pants Miami. Let's go, little animal. And as we've said before, every once in a while we get a class that gets a big dog committed early. That's Devin Sanchez, who takes ownership of the class and gets a ton of buy-in from his peers that we are going to be that class. We're going to be that class that comes in and gets it done. And as we head on to a potential recruiting crown, Devin Sanchez is leading the way. And I'm telling you, getting that guy early is the biggest thing that could have happened for this class. And it is so exciting. But Oregon's a real player now, and they're a real player in recruiting moving forward. And we're just going to have to get used to, winning some and losing some to Oregon. So when it comes to Delane, I think we're going to win. But there's a chance. 5-star all-world wide receiver with an attitude, Jamie French, is scheduled to be in Columbus on March 30th. I look for French to be a Buckeye, but again, Miami isn't on this one. And tell me if you thought 3 years ago that our nastiest competition for big-time recruits would be a team that's never won its conference, plays in a half-empty stadium next to a Walmart, and is coached by a guy with a 74-73 lifetime record. And that's Miami. Literally, there's a Walmart right next door. Not kidding. I've been there. I had to get cough syrup for the national championship game, Miami, Alabama, Notre Dame. I was really sick. Ruined the whole trip. But that's our recruiting news for today. Now, on to the big genius of the day, NCAA President Charlie Baker. He's trying to declutter the calendar in December. You know, we've been talking about this insane calendar in December where we're dealing with coaches getting fired, quitting, moving on, bowl game prep, playoff game prep, transfer portal opens, guys coming out, guys coming in, and signing day all at the same time. It sounds like the most miserable thing you could ever imagine for a college coach. So his big plan is to move signing day from the middle of the month to the first week of the month. Okay, Charlie, what's the potential problem with this? Well, the early signing day will now be taking place while teams are finishing rivalry week and preparing to play for, hopefully, in our case, their conference championship. This is an absolute mess. How are we expecting teams that are finishing rivalry week prep, playing the game, and preparing for conference championship week to also do in-home visits to lock down recruits at the end? You know, the final days of the early signing day are the culmination of literally years of recruiting and hard work. And we know, we so often see it, we can point just to this last one, Edric Houston and Jeremiah Smith. It's usually your biggest time guys that are getting aggressively recruited, and you need to be there at the end to wrap up and make all that work worthwhile. And now we're going to do that when we're supposed to be practicing and getting ready for a conference championship? Insanity. Certainly doesn't solve the problem. Charlie Baker just seems like another one on a long list of incompetent presidents of the NCAA. So what's the answer? I don't know what it is, man, but they need to figure out something better. Of course they won't. Whatever they do, there's going to be a trickle down negative effect. It doesn't matter. So I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a mess, an absolute beautiful mess, because it's college football, right? And that's what we love about it. Last episode's free t-shirt trivia question. I'm a little disappointed. Who was the MVP for the Buckeyes in the 1996 Florida Citrus Bowl? Now, nobody got it right, and I literally told you guys the answer in the episode. We did remember a Buckeye on Ricky Dudley. Ricky Dudley was the team MVP, catching 5 balls for 105 yards in a losing effort to Peyton Manning's Vols. Congratulations, Ricky Dudley. 0 congratulations to any of the Juck on Buck viewers, because none of you got it. Disappointing, guys. Let's go with today's trivia question. For a free Juck on Buck shirt mailed directly to your door, it's a handsome shirt. It's soft. I spare no expense on my favorite folks, and that's you. In 2005, the Buckeyes went up to Ann Arbor and played a nail-biter of a game. The Buckeyes ended up pulling off the win when this former running back rushed for a touchdown with 24 seconds left. Name that fella, and I'll give you a hint. Number 25. You may or may not know that Nerd Western is building a massive new football stadium. I'm not quite sure why they are, but this project is costing them $800 million, and it's totally privately funded. I've seen the inside and outside of this thing in a little tour they do on a YouTube channel that tours facilities. It's insane. But we're talking about a team who historically puts 0 money into their football program. I suppose we should thank them for the upgrade in the stadium, because every time we play them, essentially the stadium's full of nothing but scarlet and gray, right? So thanks, guys, for the upgrade. But while this stadium's being built, the Wildcats obviously need a place to play. So they've kicked around a few options. Soldier Field, Wrigley Field. It seems that when the Buckeyes travel to Chicago to play them next year, that game is going to be at Wrigley Field. Well, that all sounds fun. Game in a historic baseball stadium. Buckeye fans get to go downtown to Chicago, a historic landmark, take a picture in front of the famous Wrigley Field marquee. All great. But there's some serious problems with playing football at Wrigley Field. Number one is the dimensions of the park. They're not proper for football. It's built for baseball, and specifically baseball. Yes, we grew up at, Old Municipal Stadium where you play baseball and you play football, Three Rivers. We know what those stadiums are like. This isn't one of them. The dimensions make it so the end zone is literally like 2 feet from the wall. And it's not just that. They played a game against Iowa last year where the field, the turf, was just so... I'm going to put the video of that up. For one of the Iowa players got carted off, one of the Iowa linemen with a messed up knee. For two, you had referees trying to, all game, tamp the field down because it was coming up in big chunks. And if we go to play a game against Northwestern and hopefully a long, wonderful season, we go play this gimmicky game at Wrigley Field and one of our big dogs gets injured and carted off the field because of that, there's going to be hell to pay the piper, man, because this just screams like gimmicky game. Put them at Soldier Field where they play football. This is ridiculous. I'm not happy about it. Idiot Michigan fans went bananas last night when Caleb Downs apparently unfollowed Ohio State on Instagram. Now, I can neither confirm nor deny whether Caleb Downs unfollowed Ohio State on Instagram because I'm not a creepy weirdo following young kids' Instagram accounts. This continuing trend is absolutely absurd. It has crossed over into actual mainstream reporting now. It's weird, it's creepy, and if you follow someone who does it, just go ahead and point that out to them. Quit looking at young kids' social media and trying to glean something out of it, weirdos. At any rate, I hate to break it to you, Blue. Caleb Downs is not going anywhere. Sorry about your luck. And a side note for my Buckeye brethren. Do any of you tune in to Michigan shows? Because every Ohio State show, including this little tiny one, gets Michigan trolls who watch and comment. Also creepy and weird. None of us do that. It is so weird. Maybe some of you guys do. I don't know. I've never been there to see, but I certainly never have even thought about it. It's never crossed my mind. In other news, Jack Collinsworth, former Notre Dame player and son of legendary broadcaster and Cincinnati Bengal Chris Collinsworth, had been employed at the University of Notre Dame as their play-by-play guy for NBC games. He was widely panned as being terrible, one of the worst in the business, and a blatant Nepo hire. Well, today he's out of a job. And that's another win, led by the anti-nepotism crowd and my hero, Doug Lesmerises. The sport of football is ripe with nepotism like no other industry on the face of the earth. I wish Corey Dennis well. He seems like a great guy. But I'm happy that Ryan Day was able to unsaddle himself with the awkwardness of having Urban Meyer's son-in-law work side by side with him. Brian Ferentz, he almost got his legendary dad coach fired. And we all know that how much nepotism goes on in football coaching. But the good news is I think there's finally some pushback. And quite frankly, I think that Doug Lesmerises, of course, I just might have a very high opinion of him. I do think that Doug Lesmerises, do you remember? In a second. Okay, so Doug Lesmerises is interviewing Kirk Ferentz after a game. And he's really giving him the biz about Brian Ferentz. And the following week, or it was his midweek press conference, Ferentz ends up saying, there was a reporter and he was asking me this or that. And then I remembered I get to go home and be me and he's got to go home and be him. Essentially taking a personal shot at Doug for pointing out the blatantly obvious, which is that your son's a horrible offensive coordinator and you're becoming a horrible coach by allowing it to happen and pretending that it's not, which is what Kirk Ferentz did the entire year. But anyway, I think that Iowa AD Gary Bardo put the rule in place that 25 points based off of Doug. I think Doug Lesmerises started that entire thing rolling. And I don't believe Gary Bartow would even talk to Doug. I'll have to ask Doug and find out, but I don't believe he even talked to him. I say I'll have to ask Doug like I know. I don't know Doug, but I'm going to send him this clip. Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesley is awfully upset about the potential of expanding the playoff to 14 or 16 teams. But while I agree with Bob about expanding the playoffs being a horrible idea, we diverge on the reasons why. Bowlesby is concerned that if we moved it to 14 teams, then only the top 2 teams would get a bye. And he also believes accurately that out of those 2 top teams, rarely will one ever be a Big 12 team. Obviously. What Bowlesley likes is the current format they've decided on, where the top 4 conference championships get a bye. Even if one of those is the Big 12 champion that is in clearly a lesser conference that clearly would be a lesser team in most cases than the runner-up in the Big 10 in the SEC, and even sometimes in the ACC. Bowlesley said, at this point, it's what's best for the Big 10 and the SEC, as he pouted. And the ACC and the Big 12, it doesn't matter. Well, I disagree, Bob, a little bit. The ACC does matter some, as they still have Florida State and Clemson, 2 recent national champions. The Big 12, without Oklahoma and Texas, are now led by the powerhouses of Arizona, Arizona State, Baylor, BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, Colorado, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, Utah, and West Virginia. Now, there's a whole lot of fun teams in there, a whole lot of teams that I enjoy, a whole lot of coaching staffs I think are very good. But the last national championship won by any of those teams was a split championship by Colorado in 1990 and BYU in 1984. I feel confident in saying that not a single one of these teams has the talent or the ability to run through the gauntlet that it is now going to take to win a national championship. And there isn't a single one, I don't care how good their season is, that deserves a bye over a Big 10 or an SEC team purely based on the schedule played. Not one. On today's Remember a Buckeye. Remember a Buckeye. Remember a Buckeye. Quinn Pitcock, one of my faves, man. Quinn Pitcock from Piqua, Ohio, 6'2", 330. He was a beast in the middle during his time playing for the Trestle Bucks. He was my favorite player, my brother's too. He had a serious motor and he was straight up nasty. During his time in Columbus, he was a member of the 02 National Championship team. He won 3 Big Ten titles. The Bucks were 55-9 with Pitcock on the team. He went 4-1 against Michigan. He was a 2006 All-American, 2006 Bill Willis Award winner, 2006 All-Big Ten, and 2005 second-team All-Big Ten. I remember being a little irritated when he slipped all the way to the 3rd round as the Colts drafted him with the 98th overall pick. I thought he was considerably better than that. Well, our buddy Quinn's career was quite short-lived, as Quinn decided that he would rather play video games than play in the NFL. That's right. If you weren't around for this story and you're a little younger, Quinn Pitcock was an NFL player who quit the NFL to play video games. And he wasn't a crappy video game player. He reached number 1 in the world in 3 different video games. So congrats to Quinn. He was eventually diagnosed with ADHD and mild depression, but he just loved games. He did an interview when he was 29. Quote, "I was living the dream. I was coming off my senior year for the Buckeyes, being drafted in the 3rd round by the Indianapolis Colts. So I was on the right path for greatness. And then things turned for the worst. We have an off-season workout, and some of us do charity stuff all day, and the rest of the day is we go play video games. In the locker room, video game systems. And that's how my video gaming started. I ended up buying a game station at home. Then the online players were what really got me, because no matter what time of the day, there was always still someone playing. He said he became one of the top-ranked players in the world in 3 different games. Top 3 rankings out of millions and millions of people, so in my mind, I was doing well, so why not keep playing? That is pretty impressive. I got top 100 in Golf Clash, and it was quite a thrill for me. If you never played Golf Clash, don't start. That's a pretty addictive one, too. Pitcock said the Colts offered him help, but initially he slipped deeper into his addiction. I was spiraling down where video games were taking over my life. Once I quit the NFL, my addiction got even worse. That's when I really got into the 18 hours a day territory, eating one meal a day, secluded from everybody, my friends, my family. I realized then it was a physical need. It was no longer just mentally. I didn't want to play, but I physically had to play. I couldn't stop. It took Pitcock a while to accept the Colts' offer for help, but when he did, it saved his life. So thank goodness for Quinn. I mean, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I obviously sympathize with what he was going through because I've said all those same things he's said, and I've just never heard it about video games. So, but anyway, it was certainly a crazy, crazy thing when it happened. When we first heard it and the news broke, I mean, I'm sure you guys all remember it. And for those of you who had never heard it, like, isn't that just nuts? This guy gave up the NFL to play video games. So, but thank goodness he's all well. He's all good. But he could have been much better in the NFL, and that stinks. One of our T-shirt winners, Kane is Able, he emailed me, and as we were getting his T-shirt, we were chopping it up a little bit, and he decided to ask me some questions. Well, I was about to go on the air, and I said, tell you what, I'll answer them on the air. Why not? So let's answer these questions. Get a sip of my iced coffee. Oh, it's at the end. It's really strong there. Okay. Question 1. How confident are you in our O-line going into the season? All right. Well, it's no secret that it's the least confident we are in any of the position groups, but I feel pretty doggone good about it, to be honest, and I got a few reasons why. For starters, I'll say that I think Luke Montgomery is going to win one of those starting positions on the right side, and I think he will eventually be a solid starter, maybe a star even. Tegra Shabola, I think, could be a great guard instead of tackle. Carson Hinsman, not going to be a center, but I haven't given up on the possibility that he may play over there. A lot of the battles he lost last year were just based on physical size. His feet are pretty good, but remember, offensive line, I'm a firm believer that it's the position that improves the most just based on being able to get bigger and stronger from freshman to senior year. There's a massive upswing in weight and strength. So I'm feeling a lot better about that. And I'm also feeling good that now Justin Fry is working with Chip Kelly's rushing game. So, we got definitely some reasons to feel much more positive about that unit, though they still will most likely be the one we're most concerned about throughout the entire season. But you know what else helps? A struggling offensive line, inexperienced offensive line, is a quarterback who can steal first downs, and Big Billy Howard is a thief. So, question number 2. Our perimeter blocking needs major improvement. Not a question, just your thoughts. All right, here's my thoughts. It's true, it isn't up for debate. And I know a lot of people cannot stand the fact that Zach Smith was pointing this out last season. A lot of people think that Zach was just jealous of Hartline. And while it did seem to me that on the list of priorities of things that needed addressed, Brian Hartline and his wide receivers were pretty doggone low on that list. However, I have watched Zach Smith's all 22 breakdowns. It is quality stuff. And I can tell you that there is no argument with what he's saying on this. The wide receiver blocking is nowhere near the quality that we were accustomed to under Urban and, to be fair, under Zach's receivers. And that's just effort. It's just effort and want to. And I saw a lot of poor effort. Point blank. Now, I hate to admit that because I love those receivers and I love Brian Hartline. So the question is, will this improve? And the answer is only if there's emphasis put on it. But I'm certain that they see it when they're self-scouting. There's no way they can miss it. Zach will sit there and point it out to you all day, and you can't argue with him. You see it right there in front of you. I watched it myself. So I'm going to predict that with a young wide receiving room, all fighting for playing time, that yes, we will see improvement in the wide receiver blocking. Because no block, no rock. Number 3. Do you think there will be more rotation at key positions? Because our young guys have to get more reps than they did in the past years going into this extended playoffs. I think the teams with the freshest, healthier players will go the furthest. So our second and third strings have to get more snaps on both sides of the ball. Now, this is a great question by our man Kane is able for a couple reasons. So I know this is something that's bothered a lot of us, not just because we want to see what these young guys got, but because it does legitimately affect recruiting when guys look and see that none of our young guys play, or, a lot less than at most schools. If they don't ever play young, then when they come in as a junior and we're looking for them to start, they've just got limited playing experience. Now, there was a time, I think roughly week 9 or so of last season, when I saw the numbers posted comparing Georgia's freshmen and sophomores, snaps, and Ohio State freshmen and sophomores, snaps. And I looked it up this morning and I couldn't find it because I wanted to share it with you. But I do remember that the Buckeyes were at about half the number that Georgia was at. And that's not good. And that's comparing apples to apples when we're talking Ohio State and Georgia. So my answer is yes, absolutely. We are going to see a lot. We're going to see a lot of the younger guys play more. And we are going to see it because they need game-ready depth. Not just bodies depth. They need game-ready depth as we go into this long season. And the reason I'm so confident is because we've now heard James Laurinaitis, Jim Knowles, and Ryan Day all discuss the challenges of this extended schedule. So to make a deep playoff run, the importance of getting the young guys ready and having that game-play-ready depth is paramount. And now we've heard this said by Ryan Day, at least, in previous off seasons, and I think that was his intention, just like it was his intention to give Brian Hartline play calling duties. But, sometimes whether it's play calling or playing time, if you just don't feel, if you feel like the team is going to suffer a little bit, if you put this guy in or suffer a little bit, if this guy or that guy's calling plays and it's a tighter game, then you might want to hold back the reins and say, not today. Seemed like we had a whole lot of not today games last year. You know what I'm saying? So what do we need to focus on? We need to focus on hot starts. We started sluggishly every game last year, it seemed. And if you start sluggishly, the odds of getting these younger guys in early and getting them quality playing time is a lot worse. So what we got to look forward to is fast starts. And I think we're going to get them. I think this offense is going to be a juggernaut again. And I think this defense is going to be just as good as it was, if not better. Those are my answers. Kane is able. Thank you for asking the questions. If any of you would like to contribute to the show in that way, I'll be happy to answer the questions. Put them in the comments. Send them to the email, juckonbucks@gmail.com, or follow me on Twitter. I'll always check those at juckonbucks. That's it, right? Twitter at juckonbucks. Yeah, it's just an at. So that's that with that. And as we wrap up this week, this makes week 4. So we are 1 month of Juck on Bucks in the books. And I want to tell you all how extremely grateful I am to those of you who have supported me and watched me in this first month as I try to work out how to not only be in front of a camera, but how to put together a Buckeye show. I received an incredible amount of encouragement from fellow Buckeyes, and it means the world to me because I was terrified of this, absolutely terrified. And to have people actually subscribe to the channel and to comment on the videos and to talk Bucks with me was my goal, and I've achieved my goal. So thank you very much. I will see you next week. Juck on Bucks out.